you build these capabilities in yourself, you're going to amplify your results. You are going to exceed your quota, no matter what's happening in the outside environment.
Giving your clients a competitive edge, that's so niche, right? A lot of people can help, but giving a competitive advantage in today's world, it's so niche.
Really want to open yourself up to new markets. This is the perfect time to do it, because the comfort level with technology, the pandemic absolutely accelerated that.
Hey guys, this is Ashish Janiani. Thank you so much for joining me on yet another amazing sales interview, coming up with one of the best trainers in the world. If you are a person involved in sales, which I believe all of us are, right, in any capacity, you have to take notes. The person that is coming in front of you, she's one of the very few and key women sales leaders in the world, right? Her book, Modern Seller, is an Amazon bestseller and a #1 new release. Okay. She has been published in publications like Top Sales World, Selling Power, TD Magazine, Training Industry, Training Magazine, Accounting Today, and CLO Magazine. Please help me welcome Amy Franko. Hey, Amy, how you doing? Good morning out there.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. But I want to start with Amy. How did you get into sales is my first question.
So how I got into sales is one of those careers. It's not something that I would have actively chosen for myself. These days, and especially here in the US, there are now universities that have sales schools. So someone could choose that as a major or a certificate program and build those skills while they're at university. For myself, I got into sales a little bit by accident. It was the very first job that I landed out of university. It was an inside sales role, and it was for a technology company, an IBM business partner. So that was my very first exposure to sales, and I absolutely loved it. I loved helping customers to solve problems. I loved, it was so much fun to win an opportunity, right? It just really fed into my competitive spirit, and it fed into it's very energetic type of field. So I was very fortunate to get my start there. And for the first 10 years of my career, I stayed in technology, and spent a good part of that 10 years at both IBM and Lenovo. So that's where I got my start. And today I consider myself to be an entrepreneur, and I get the opportunity to do all of the things I love, which is sales, leadership, speaking, teaching, writing, and I get to do it all around helping people build their sales skills and helping sales leaders to run effective organizations.
Wow, that's pretty good. You know what I like about that is you said that you loved helping people along with the opportunity of closing the deal. Very few people say that. A lot of people, even today, enter sales not knowing what's going to happen, and it's not really because they want to help people, it's because they want to make money, which is a wrong philosophy, which we know now, after so much work. But that's interesting. Very few people have the mindset that you have. So I'm curious to know then this. Through years, have you discovered sales to be your bigger passion or sales leadership?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would have to say sales is my bigger passion, because until I became an entrepreneur, and I do have a team of people that I work with, I was always an individual contributor. I had a sales quota. I had a certain territory. I had a certain set of products and services that I sold. So I would probably have to choose sales as my passion. And then, secondarily, I love getting the opportunity to work with sales leaders, because the great part about that is if I can work with sales leaders, they can then affect their team, and they can affect their teams, impact their teams much more than I could do just working one-on-one with individual sellers.
All right, good. So let me get the conversation more towards sales then. You wrote a
Yeah.
book called The Modern Seller. Sell more and increase your impact in the new sales economy, right? Uh, can you tell me how did you come about this book and what is the main philosophy?
Sure. So what's been really fascinating about the book so far, when I wrote that book and published it, it was 2018. I don't think any of us had a crystal ball to know what was going to be happening over the next couple of years, right? But what is so fascinating about it is, and I've had this conversation with other sellers and other sales leaders, is just how relevant the concepts are now, maybe even more so than when I published the book, a little over 2 years ago. So with that context in mind, it has always been a dream of mine to be an author, to write a book. And I joke that this was a 20-year goal and a 20-month project to push it over the finish line, as a lot of authors do. I had a full-time gig while I was writing this book, which you can probably relate to. But the catalyst for the book was working with my clients and my prospective clients, and I have a learning and development background as well. So I was starting to realize that there were some, I call them skills behind the skills, that would make sellers become even more successful, or things that they had to master to help them master the basics. So things like prospecting, presenting, negotiating, closing, those things don't go away. They are extremely important to the sales process, but I don't focus on those in the book. What I did was I tried to peel back the layers, and I uncovered 5 dimensions or 5 capabilities that I found that if we built these individually in ourselves, that we would become even better at the everyday selling activities. So that was the catalyst behind the book, is really getting into those capabilities and figuring out, all right, how do we become even better at our everyday selling activities?
Okay, so how do I get better at these capabilities and what these capabilities are?
So what if I just shared at a high level what each of the 5 are, and then if you'd like, we can get into any of them that really pique your interest. All right, let's do that.
Yes, that would be good. Let's do it.
All right. So first, I probably should define what a modern seller is, just for a little bit of context. A modern seller is someone who is really seen by their clients, and I would also argue your prospects, as someone who is a difference maker. You are recognized as someone who makes a difference to them personally, or you make a difference to their business. And then secondly, a modern seller is someone who brings so much value to your clients and your prospective clients that you amplify the value of your product or service. You're almost connected to it in a way. You can't be separated from it, and you amplify it. And then lastly, a modern seller is someone who helps their customers get a competitive advantage. You know that you are a modern seller when your customer says to you, I really couldn't do this without you. Or you have helped us to accomplish this goal, to overcome this challenge. That's how you know that you've arrived, if you will. So for people to begin thinking about, all right, which of those am I strong at right now? And maybe where do I have some opportunities to improve? But to just very briefly go through the 5 capabilities of a modern seller is agile, entrepreneurial, holistic, social, and an ambassador. You build these capabilities in yourself, you're going to amplify your results. You are going to exceed your quota, no matter what's happening in the outside environment.
So we've got agile, entrepreneur, you said social, ambassador, and the 5th one was?
Holistic.
Holistic. All right, got it. Okay. Now let me pick a couple, if you may allow. And I'm
Yes,
gonna be
please do.
a little selfish over here because I get to
Please
pick
pick a couple.
Yeah. All right. So since entrepreneurship is going to be, it's already on a huge rise, all over the world, what's happened and what's happening. Let's talk about that. Second is being an ambassador, because I also like the point of giving your clients a competitive edge.
Mhm.
That's so niche, right? A lot of people can help, but giving a competitive advantage in today's world, it's so niche, right? So I think being an ambassador is an important part somewhere over that. So if we can speak about that today.
Sure, sure. So let's start with entrepreneurial. And, someone a modern seller who is entrepreneurial, they just don't see themselves as an employee of their organization. They really see themselves as the owner of their territory, the owner of their book of business or their quota. And when you take that mindset, you make some different decisions because you're looking at things differently. So when you own something and you really want to grow it, you care for it differently. So in the context of sales, it might be looking at what is the top line performance of my territory? What's the bottom line performance of my territory? Many sellers are incented only on top line revenue that they bring in. But if you bring in $1 million deal and you lose $1.1 million on that deal, is that a good deal? It might depend. Most people would say no, but there are definitely certain scenarios where you might take on a deal like that. But that's thinking like an entrepreneur by working through what are the pros and cons of the certain types of clients and deals that I take on. You're also going to look at your upside. Where are your biggest opportunities? You're going to look at your downside and your risks. That is just way different than going day to day, looking at here's the list that my CRM pulled for me, and this is the list of people that I need to call. These are the deals that I need to move through my pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. Those are important activities, but you would be more effective at those activities and perhaps make some different decisions about them when you are pulling back the layers and thinking more strategically as an entrepreneur would. So that is at a high level how a modern seller who's entrepreneurial thinks about their territory or their book of business.
Can we develop these skills in some format? Let's say that I'm not that entrepreneurial, but I know I want to be an entrepreneur for other reasons. Is there a way that you speak about in the book, or you can suggest that I can develop these skills?
Yeah, so where I would start, and so I'll answer that in two ways. You can develop them as an individual, but if you have a sales leader who's listening or watching this episode, they can also take these same ideas and use them to develop their teams and coach their teams. But just taking an individual standpoint first, a great place to start is by looking at your current territory. What is the overall revenue and profit of my territory? Taking an inventory of the current customers that are in that territory, and then segmenting them into their verticals that they belong to. Entrepreneurs are very entrepreneurial sellers, if you will. They are very adept at being able to categorize their customers, categorize them into verticals, and then see where they have some diamonds in the rough. So if you have, let's say that you have a set of 100 customers, and after you categorize them, what you realize is, wow, I have 100 customers that are in 6 verticals, 6 industries. Then an entrepreneurial seller would analyze that to say, which of these industries have the greatest opportunity for growth? Which of these industries perhaps have the greatest opportunities for risk? And where do I need to either increase the customers that I have in these verticals, or do I need to maybe exit a vertical because it's just not serving me and I have these few customers over here that maybe just aren't quite the right fit? So those are some places that you could start. And I'll summarize that very briefly. Take a look at your customer set, start organizing them into verticals, and then start making some decisions about which verticals are going to help you grow and which verticals that you might need to divert your resources from. Because then from there, you could start to put your plan together of your sales activities, your opportunities, and move forward into those sales processes.
Wow. So, while you were talking, I was just thinking back about territories and how important they are, and then the pandemic. I wanted to ask you one more quick question, more of like, your confirmation if we are thinking right, especially for guys who work on territories and they are trained to work on territories. Now, think about it, because so many things are now virtually accepted. A lot of big meetings now can happen online, and people are fine with that. It's not more like you're avoiding or you're procrastinating to travel. It's more of like, yeah, I get it, and we can still have the meeting, and it's the same thing. Sometimes, after analyzing the territory, it may be possible that you come across new territories that you did not think about, which may be even international, for consultants like you and me. I mean, there are different consultants, there are social media consultants, there are brand consultants, things like that. And you may realize that your product or service has more value for customers in a new territory with the work that you're doing over here. Would you say that that is something which has become like way much more easier to do in terms of expansion of territory, and it is important from an entrepreneurial perspective given now after 2020?
One of the biggest trends that I believe is here to stay is the need for sellers to really master virtual selling skills. If you are waiting for this to go away, it is not going away. That's my news flash for you. But the great thing is that building these virtual selling skills, they're additive. And I think much of that is to the point that you just made. Our clients and prospects, there's going to be a subset of them that truly prefer virtual relationships. There will always be those, and I'm an in-person person. There are always those people, those clients that want to be in person, but you can limit yourself if you don't build those virtual selling skills. And just using myself as an example, I have an opportunity right now with a prospective client that is in Europe, and we have met and developed a relationship completely virtually in
Wow.
platforms like Zoom and Teams. And the entire sales process is virtual. So yes, I agree 100%. If you really want to open yourself up to new markets, this is the perfect time to do it, because the comfort level with technology, the pandemic absolutely accelerated that. Anyone who was uncomfortable with technology, they had no choice but to work through it, whether as a seller or as a customer. So yes, if that is your goal, you want to expand internationally, you absolutely have the ability to do it, especially now.
Yeah, and the way I think about it is, people are thinking how technology is today. I mean, Zoom is going to evolve. So, can you imagine how Zoom will be 2 years from now and what all stuff you can do online? I mean, it's not live yet, but I'm sure they are working on it, and so many other companies. So, as an entrepreneur, you need to realize of what this technology will do for me in the coming years, and you need to be ready for that. Maybe you will have way more tools on Zoom to be able to do your online meeting, right? So, think about that.
I as part of my work, so I do consulting work. So I will help clients with sales strategy, or maybe there's a big sales problem they're looking to solve. I also do a lot of skill development with sales teams, and every client that I worked with in 2020, and probably at least for most of this year, was all virtual. It was all primarily in Zoom, and it really worked well. Once the decision was made on the part of the customer to say, we can't wait, we want to move forward, then it's a matter of just figuring it out. And the technology is there, but we have to, as consultants or sellers, whatever role you might be in, we have to be open and say, all right, I'm going to figure this out. It may not be perfect, it will never be perfect, but can we get the customer to where he or she wants to go, but just doing it in a different way?
Yeah. All right. So let's come to the ambassador point and then we'll summarize the interview. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So the idea behind a modern seller being an ambassador, this is really around loyalty. If anyone has ever taken a customer satisfaction survey, it used to be that if you had a really satisfied customer from your perspective, you had arrived, right? If 5 stars all the way down. But I would challenge that notion to say that even a satisfied customer isn't quite enough. We want to take our satisfied customers and clients, and we want to move them along to loyalty. A
Hmm.
loyal customer is 3 times more likely to continue buying from us. They are more likely to help us expand within their organization, new products, new services, and they are more likely to introduce us to new prospective customers. When a prospective customer, a prospect is, when someone is looking for a product or service, the first place they're going to go is they're going to go to their trusted sources and say, who would you recommend? That has not changed. Now there's other research. They're going to Google, they're going to look on social media, but they are still going to go to people that they trust and say,
Yes.
who do you recommend? So that is loyalty. And one interesting statistic. This comes from a research report that was done by the firm is called Hinge, the Hinge Research Institute, and they do quite a bit of survey work with professional services firms. But I think that this statistic could hold true for any type of industry. So in their survey work, what they found was that 1 out of 4 professional services firms that they surveyed, 1 out of 4 would consider moving to another provider over the next 2 to 3 years because loyalty is challenged more than ever before.
Hmm.
Now, you can look at that as a seller. It's both a warning and an opportunity. As a seller, let's say you have 100 customers in your territory. 25 of them right now could be considering going to another provider. But if you know your competitors real well, you could also use that as an opportunity because your competitors are dealing with the same issue. That all ties to loyalty. And a modern seller who really understands this, they put a lot of effort into continuing to cultivate their current customers and grow their current customers, because then that feeds long-term value, mutual value, and it can also lead to new opportunities. So I just said a lot. Let me stop there and see
Yeah.
what you'd like to dig into with that.
Yeah, no, but it's so important. Okay, yeah, that's good information because it's so important. I want to speak about customer service because it sounds like being a great customer service oriented profession is important for me to become an ambassador, right? Amy, can you give some tips on how can I do that virtually? How can I do that, in the same city? Should I have a team for that? And I'm talking as an entrepreneur, right? Who's watching this?
Yeah.
Should I do it by myself? How important is consistency in that? And I'm putting all those questions together because I know that you will give me an answer which combines these attributes.
I'll give it my best shot. So here's where I would start. If I'm an entrepreneur, of course, which I am, I would be looking at who are my top customers right now that I want to make sure that I keep and that I grow. Does not matter what the number is. I don't care if it's 5 or it's 500, but do you have a handle on your best customers? Because then that can help you make decisions about, is that something that I should do myself? Is it something that I should have a team member for? I am of the belief that we can't do everything as entrepreneurs. We like to think that we can. And sometimes in the early stages, you are wearing lots of hats. And there are times where you're going to have to make a decision to make an investment in a team member or some type of outside help to help you provide that type of service that your customers expect so you can build loyalty with them. So you do have to think strategically as an entrepreneur, what does my team need to look like in order to service my current customers so that I can grow my customers. Having too much growth can be just as challenging as not having enough growth, because it could ultimately, what seems like a good thing in the beginning could ultimately hurt your reputation in the marketplace if you aren't delivering the service that your customers are expecting. So hopefully that gives our listeners a few ideas to be thinking about when it comes to how do you create the right customer service environment.
Yeah, it does. So can we give them one practical example of how would they do it? So let's say they've got a team. We established that. Don't do everything by yourself. You will have a cap. You can't do everything by yourself.
Sure.
Okay. So let's say I've got 10 top customers this year out of the 50 that I've served. Now, what should be my strategy? How do I build that ambassador oriented role with these guys?
Okay, so here's what I would do. I would take those 10 and I would schedule a video conversation with the main decision maker to start with each of those 10. And this can be a 30-minute conversation. And you want to understand a couple of very specific things from that decision maker. You want to understand what has gone well in our relationship. Where are there some specific areas for improvement? What specifically has gone well? Where are there some specific areas for improvement? What's one or two things we could be doing even better? When you understand what those things are, you can then put together a plan to improve and or continue to deliver on those. Then the follow-up, the proof is in the follow-up. It's one thing to have the conversation, but you really deliver and you're a modern seller in the follow-up. What you can do after that is set some time frames and commit to your customer. I'm going to come back to you in the next quarter with a plan around this. And then let's set a touch point, quarterly, twice a year, whatever that needs to look like, to make sure that I'm delivering on these things, my team is delivering on these things, because Mr. Customer, I really want to earn your loyalty and continue working with you. So those are very specific things you could do.
There we go. All right. So my last question, and then we'll summarize. Complaints. Yeah. Complaints. Do you see them as opportunities or do you see them as complaints?
Opportunities.
Okay, there we go.
I see them as opportunities. There. And very, very briefly, a complaint or an issue with the customer, if you look at it as only a complaint and not an opportunity, you could miss the opportunity to take care of that company, that individual. So much of what we do is in our approach, how we work with the customer, the tone of voice that we take. Are we defensive or are we positive? Are we solution oriented or are we focused on placing blame? Think about how those complaints are coming in and how they're resolved, and that can help you to understand how to work through them. And truly, a complaint might be a complaint. It is an opportunity. If you're getting too many complaints from a customer and you've uncovered, honestly, that it's them and not you, you may have a low-level client or customer that you now need to figure out what to do with. Do you keep them? Do you make them available to the marketplace, as a good friend of mine likes to say? You have some opportunities here to strategize on what you do with them.
All right, good stuff. So now, where do people find you? Where can they get the book? And, if they wanted to get in touch with you, what is the best way? Do we have any online courses, seminars, or do you post on any social media channels? Which is the best way?
Sure. So let me start with the book. The best way to find the book is on Amazon. It's in hardcover, it's in Kindle, and it's also on Audible. So that is the very best place to go for that. The best place to connect with me, first, LinkedIn. And please send me a personalized invitation. Let me know that you heard me on this show so I know where you came from, and I will happily accept. And then lastly, to your question on digital courses, learn.amyfranko.com. I have out there on our custom LMS strategic selling program, and you can access 2 free preview lessons and I promise they're good ones. You'll learn something from those 2 free freebies. So you can head on out there if that's something that's of interest to you.
All right. Well, Amy, it's been a pleasure. I really love the chat. It's very relevant. It's very apt for the world that we are in. Though you wrote the book in 2018, I think it was a calling, right?
I think so. Ashish, thank you. It was a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Yes, no, you're most welcome, and I look forward to doing more of these things. Thank you.